Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the High Ticket Coaching and Consultant Strategy and Growth Show. Now, if you're watching this interview anywhere else but within our private Facebook community called High Ticket Client Attraction Insider Circle, then definitely come check us out. We'd definitely love to have you. So today I want to introduce you to one of the members of the community, Sara. Welcome, Sara.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Awesome, you're welcome. So tell us, what is it that you do?
So I actually play a doctor by day and converted into corporate consulting when I started to notice between my professionals coming to see me at the office and watching my dad after 30 plus years in corporate. Both were sacrificing significant aspects of their health to show up positively for their company. And so I pivoted and said, there's a better way to do this. And so that's what I did. So I work with companies to help create high performance employees so that way they can raise their standards and set higher goals.
Yeah, awesome. So you're saying ultimately on your journey, you've just noticed that most individuals who were in the corporate environment, they were coming to you based on health issues, based on what they were doing, the job, the stuff that they were going through in their careers?
I think that we've done this backwards. So a great culture comes when you have great people, and great people don't just happen, right? You have to make sure that they are whole and happy as people and not just as employees. And unfortunately, we've turned the corporate wellness into a cliche topic where by giving someone a Fitbit and giving them a gym membership that they're going to be whole, happy people. And it just doesn't happen that way, which is why there's more statistics out there than ways to problem solve the whole being a whole person in the workplace. And so I've got patients of mine who are, leaving on their lunch hour, they're skipping their lunch hour to come and take good care of themselves. They're making appointments late at night because the companies they work for are just not recognizing that they need more than probably what they're getting. And so there's a big demand for it. And I think there's a lot of companies that don't know how to do it because they followed everyone else's lead. And one of the fun things I tell people is when you start helping your employees be the people that they want to be and who they can be for you, you're no longer comparing yourself to other people in the industry. You are now setting the standard, and they're now looking at you like, I don't know what they're doing different, but how do we get on the wagon?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is so true, so true. We're in the process of growing our team as well too. And when it comes to businesses, I've realized, just like as you said, most individuals, they just care more about the actual business and the running of the day-to-day tasks or whatever need to get done, versus not realizing that with the employees, like they're human beings as well, right? They need certain elements of to support them, whether it's through health, fitness, whatever it is, but that needs to be kind of included into that process, right?
Absolutely. And, I hate to say it, but people are not robots. And I don't know why we are not recognizing that. But if you ask an employee, what are their top goals in life? A successful career, being useful to other people is obviously one of them. But their motivating force is to do good in the world. They want to be a good spouse. They want to be a good parent. They want to be, they want to be a good person of the community. And if we lead from helping them do that, rather than from taking from them, I need you to work 25 hours a day, I need you to not sleep, I think we would have a much better starting point. But I even notice myself when I wake up and I'm eating well and my mindset is right and I'm taking good care of myself and I have people who help me take care of myself, that's when I lead the day. When I don't do those things, my day just happens to me. I get to the end of the day and I have no idea how it unfolded. And so, you do enough of those days where your days are just happening to you, right? You're not showing up in any capacity in your life to the caliber that you could if you just had some more guidance and a company that actually supported you.
Yeah, awesome. So what type of issues do you typically see your clients as far as going through the process are they facing?
So what we find, different organizations face different issues, right? They have different age groups that are highly represented in their organizations. A younger, newer startup company is going to have different issues than a more mature, demographic of people that have been there for 20 plus years. One of the big ones we've been noticing is mental health. So mental health, for a lot of people, just consider it to be, do I feel anxious today or do I feel depressed today? And there's so many varying shades of mental health, right? How do I feel about myself? How do I feel like I can show up for the world? And so a lot of people don't know how to address the mental health issue because for a lot of companies, there's a stigma attached, right? Either the employee is concerned about the employer knowing that they have issues or concerns, right? I never say problems, they're just issues. Or the company doesn't know how to actually help them, and so they leave it alone and they don't tackle it. Another big one is company balance. So how do people feel like they can be supportive in your company without feeling like they're on 24 hours a day, right? So companies who, mandatory cell phones on all the time and conference calls, depending on where your culture is as far as leading into people, you need to figure out how to allow people to have their personal time be personal and their professional time be professional. And then the other most critical issue is not only how do you give people resources, but how do you actually help them be better people, right? How do you feed into them in a way that you get to be the best version of you and I get to be the best version of me? And collectively, when we all show up that way, I mean, like, you're not just talking about marginal increases, you're talking about like major exponential growth.
Mm-hmm. Awesome, love it. So what about your own journey as well too? How long did it take you to make that shift to now saying working with corporations?
So if you had asked me when I became a doctor if I ever thought I was going to shift to corporate, I would have said no way. After watching my dad's journey, and to be honest with you, there's so many people that are leaving the corporate world that when they come across someone who's like motivated and excited and inspired and going toward corporate, they're like, what am I missing that this girl is figuring out? So it's just been in the last probably 5 or 6 years that I just started really leaning into companies on how to better serve them. And I don't want to say it's rocket science because it's not rocket science. It's just in the United States, we value being sick more than we value being healthy. We don't actually believe people in the United States can take personal accountability and still be a great employee, or take personal accountability and do bigger things than what, their parents did or other people tell them they could do. So for me, it's just a much bigger issue of how do people get the opportunity to be what they want to be without having to start their own company, without having to go out and travel and backpack through Europe for 4 years to find themselves. I truly believe people can work for your organizations and thrive becoming the people that they want to become. And I think it's always that fire has always been there. I just didn't know how to define it. Mm-hmm. And when I realized that corporate America was where I wanted to do it, people laugh at me. They're like, I can't even believe that you would put corporate America and fun in the same sentence, because most people shy away from corporate America. And I think it's such an untapped market of beautiful potential that could really make a lot of change.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. How did you, when you worked before, how did that look for you? Were you in an office? Do you run your own practice as well too? Or how did that look for you?
So I am in private practice. So when I graduated, I went into private practice with my brother-in-law. And so we've been practicing together for about 10 years. Mm-hmm. And so I've got to see people individually grow, but also kind of their journey as far as seeing how the environment they're in is either helping them positively or negatively impacting them. And you can't have one without the other, right? So you can have the desire to want to grow, but if you're being suppressed and stifled, right, you're going to keep trying and you're going to feel like, you're being held underwater, right? And so there's a big synergy when someone individually wants to take accountability and they're also in an organization where they can do that as well. And so it's just been a really cool journey. I love working with people one-on-one. But my big calling is working with large organizations to help them help their employees, right? I don't have to be the rock star. I want the people who lead these organizations to be like, wow, these people care enough about me to invest in us. And that's where the magic happens.
Yeah. And how open are you to find corporations? Are corporations pretty open to what you share as far as your philosophy and on this solving this current issue?
So it's funny you should ask that, because I don't even think if you ask most companies if they think it's an issue that they would say they have an issue, because they're so used to doing things the way they are. I will tell you, I was at an HR conference last year. I was just attending. I was a fly on the wall taking on information. And it was all HR directors. I had said, when was the last time you talked about health, well-being, and capacity at a conference, right? It was a big conference. There was probably 1,000 people there. And they said the only time we actually talk about like people's health is when we talk about benefits. And so there is a large stigma about how do we shift a company from here are your corporate benefits, here's what your copay is, here's what your deductible is, to like the actual scope of health to the point where you can actually use it. I mean, if someone's going to use their health benefits, they're not they're not using them usually in a healthy way, right? There's an emergency that comes up, an emergency doctor's appointment. So for companies, I think it's intriguing because I think they've been thinking it all along. How do we raise our employee standards expectations so that we can actually reach our goals rather than lowering our expectations because we can't figure out how to help our employees? And I just think most companies in some capacity think that their employees are assets. But at the same time, saying that I have employees that are assets and engaging with them as if they're assets are two totally different worlds. And then we start having a conversation and they're like, you get it. I was like, well, I do get it, but it's definitely not, I would definitely not say that in the United States right now, it is commonplace protocol to build into your employees more than an occasional lunch and learn or an occasional, massage therapist that comes in on, employee appreciation day. And it just doesn't cut it, right? You don't just occasionally check in with your kids. You don't just occasionally check in with your spouse. You are on a constant mission to make sure you're checking in with them. Employees are no different.
Yeah, that's so powerful as well too. And that's the same thing because what we do in our own business, we help we mostly work with coaches, consultants, the entrepreneurs, helping them package up the knowledge into high ticket programs and basically building a business online. So where they could just do it full time and stuff like that. And one of the things I realize is that most individuals, and a lot of individuals, when they do what they buy the programs to learn how to do what they need to do, it's like you get sold a program, right? Just like, hey, here's a step-by-step process. But I realize with growing a business of everything, it's like, it's not just what to do, but it's like your whole life in general, right? It's almost like it's a kind of like a lifestyle. And I try to incorporate the whole aspect of it because most people who sell stuff, they're just like, hey, just do this or whatever, versus not looking at the whole person as a whole. Like this person has a family, they have obligations, they have schedules, they have all these different things. And how do you build something that kind of helps them support all the areas of their life as they work with you versus just saying, well, we'll just focus on the money or we'll just focus on this one thing, right? So I think that's what you're doing is so powerful, right?
I love what I do. I get up every day and, there's so many personal circumstances that brought me to this point that I never would have tackled this on my own had it not presented itself. But your identity as a person does not change depending on what company you work for, right? You need to be able to say who you are. And the only way you do that is, number one, figuring out who you are and then maintaining it. And I think so often when you start working for an organization or when you're in an unsupportive environment, that starts to go away. And then that's when the robotic tendencies start to come in. And that's when you're showing up, but your heart's not in it and your passion and your drive aren't there. And I just find I have yet to meet someone who's passionate, who has a drive, who feels supported, that isn't successful. And I mean, that's really what we're trying to create. We don't want to wait until you retire in order for you to live the life that you want to live, right? We believe that you can live the life that you want to live now. And we think companies can help you do that in a really successful way. And so I think how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you find a CEO who's not taking adequate care of themselves, who doesn't have a great mindset, who isn't getting adequate sleep, that is how he or she is going to lead. Right. And so really what we look for is organizations that we're a good fit, right? They want what we want for them, right? We can't want something for them that they don't want for themselves. And so sometimes it's a slow conversation. I think sometimes people just don't realize how far off they've gotten. And, if nonetheless, it's just really exciting to know that there are people out there who believe that they can not only be great individuals, but they can run amazing companies.
Mm-hmm. Love that. So, excuse me, over your career, I guess, what would you say is one skill you've that you believe has been responsible for your level of success today?
It's a great question. I would say emotional maturity. So I think what happens with a lot of people is one day is good and they go up, and then the next day is bad, and then the next day is good. And I think for people in general, like the level of maturity, you have to rise to the level of success that you want to have. You have to rise to the level that you want to show up for your clients. It doesn't go the other way around. And so I found that once I actually took 100% accountability for my actions, how I felt, how I responded to people, I was no longer playing the victim game, right? Like, well, because they were in a bad mood, I'm in a bad mood. Because I showed up and my client was unprepared, right? Like now I'm scattered, right? Once I got really solid on this idea that I am solely responsible for all of those things, I show up in a completely different way. And now showing up in a completely different way helps me help people in a much better way. And then instead of me telling them how to do things, right? Because I'm showing up in the way that I am, now they're asking questions, right? You're showing up different. What are you doing different, right? And I'm leading by example and they want to follow. I'm not pushing, right? I'm not pushing things on them. They want to be more like me because they see I'm calm most of the time. I'm confident and, recognize this ebb and flow that people are people and that we just need to take things as they come because it's definitely not a 90-degree angle all the time. And when you work with people, you have to be adaptable. And you can't be adaptable when you have no emotional maturity and you can't recognize that the day will ebb and flow and be even more successful than it would have been if something else happened or it took a different turn. So I would definitely say emotional maturity.
Yeah, awesome. What about habits, right? What's one habit you believe that if anyone incorporated, it will help them create the success that they want?
I think predictable momentum. You have to get so clear on your habits on a day-to-day basis that regardless of whether you feel like it or whether you don't feel like it, you are consistent with it. Like I have a morning routine. I do this morning routine whether I feel like it, whether I don't feel like it, whether I slept well, whether I'm mad at someone. It sets the trajectory for the rest of my day. And so I would say habits. You cannot build the life that you want by being inconsistent in anything. You have to get very deliberate with what makes you feel good, what keeps you on point with things, and what keeps you able to serve in a higher capacity for other people.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And the next question I have is as far as books wise, right? So whether it's books, podcasts, how do you consume information? What's your process?
So if you had asked me 10 years ago, I would have never touched a book again, right? I was so overdone consuming textbooks for testing purposes and boards and all of that. I really like podcasts, to be honest with you. I think it's a really great way to consume information when you can't be doing anything else. When I'm in the car, before I go to bed, I really love listening to podcasts. It helps calm me down. Sometimes, when I'm starting the day, making breakfast, I'll put them on in the background. But since I try and leave my electronics an hour before I go to bed, just to help shut my brain off, I will pull out books and I'll go a chapter at a time. But I would definitely say podcasts, but I'm very selective because I have a tendency to pick, right? And what I needed to do is get very specific on one and listen to that. And then if I decided I either needed to pivot or I needed, a different sort of information based on what was going on in life, I'd pivot. But I don't want to overconsume either. So, some days that depends. Some days I'll listen to one podcast, sometimes that's two. Some days I only get a half podcast in and I realize that today is not the day for me to consume more information. It's the day for me to just kind of sit with what I've got. But I would definitely say podcasts.
Awesome. Love it. Love it. So what's that core message you want to leave the audience with here today?
Core message I want to leave with the audience today is you have to work for an organization that values you as an individual and sees you as someone who, as a whole person, can bring so much value to the world. And I think that you have value. I think I have value. And no matter whether you are working at an entry-level position, you work at a C-level, I think everybody has value within an organization. And I genuinely believe that we can do it. We can do wholeness as a person in a better way.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Love it. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. So if someone wanted to reach out, what's the best way for them to be able to connect?
So I have a Facebook group, Dr. Sara Whedon. They can follow me. I have a personal Facebook page. And, I think I sent over all of our information as far as email address and contact information, should you want to share that with them. But you can find me anywhere. Our company name is Axiom Wellness. And so, info at axiomwellness.com will also get you information over to us.
Mm-hmm. Awesome, Sarah. And guys, if you're watching this on a live on the replay, all the links Sarah mentioned here to connect with her, they will either be right above or below this video. So you should be able to just click and get connected right to her. Awesome, Sarah. Well, hey, thank you so much for making the time to be here today. Do you have any final thoughts before we end?
Just that I think you're awesome. And I think that you just lead with such a servant's heart, and that's such a rarity these days. So I'm very grateful for you and thank you for the opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And enjoy. We'll be in touch.
All right.